What's going on, guys? Bingo here, and today I want to bring you guys an update to my Nekroz deck profile. So the last profile I had up was from the Rosemont Regional, and since then the format kind of hasn't changed much. I was trying to hold off to the next Forbidden and Limited list before I upload this profile, but it's been heavily requested, and there were some minor changes. So Nekroz is in a very weird place where it's almost a viable option. It just has some hard counters, as well as it just doesn't stand up to the current decks of the format very well, but it does have its positive matchups. But I'll go into more detail when I get into the cards and how I think the deck can play in 2019. So I'm gonna start off with the main deck right here, and obviously we play the one Shuret Strategist of the Nekroz. This card is great. It needs to come to 2. Obviously, if it comes to 2, it might as well come to 3 because we're not going to play more than 2. But it just does so much for the deck, and we really do need this card at multiples so that we don't neg as much when it comes to ritual summoning. So the next Necros monster is 2 Necros of Colossus. You don't need more than 2 sometimes. You know, you feel like you need it, but that's just probably because you were overextending in some ways, or you did searches in some incorrect orders. You definitely don't need more than 2 in this deck. We got the one of Necros of Unicorn. This card needs to be at multiples for this deck to be viable. Nekroz is an extremely consistent deck to the point where it's almost redundant, but the deck doesn't hold up to the standards of 2019, as in it doesn't plus enough. Really, the only plus in the deck is Manju or Senju, or the incantations. You know, they are technically a +2 when you resolve the effects, but it just doesn't keep up. Really, you're lucky if you maintain 5 to 6 cards going first, combined on field and in hand. So this being able to recur the power cards that you need at the time from the hand is very important, as well as having one established on board. So this card at 1 is probably the major reason the deck isn't at tier 2 status or even fringe play. Like, obviously it's got a very good following, but for the deck to be competitively viable, we need this card at more than 1. The next one is 3 copies of Necros of Bryanak. It's staple at 3. If anyone tells you otherwise, just stop listening to them. This card, the field effect is almost more relevant than the search effect. I know it sounds really strange because you're always activating the search effect turn 1, but the +1 you get from just bouncing 2 cards on the field to the extra deck is extremely important. It's one of your only outs to Colossus. It just forces negations, as well as helps you swing the tempo back into your favor. The next one, this was a change from my last deck profile. I actually play 3 Valcke. This is important because you're playing a protect the castle style deck where one of the only outs to dealing with the card is in the battle phase. Now, a lot of decks can negate the effect with Infinite Impermanence, Widow Anchor, but being able to clear the monster is a lot different than being able to negate its effect for the turn. So this is very important. It's your biggest guy in the deck. Sometimes his draw effect comes up, but it's really not that much. The next card is Necros of Trishula. I play 2 copies. You have to play 2. 1 because Unicorn is at 1, so you need to be able to have the targeting protection in this day and age, as well as resolve the field effect 1, 2, sometimes even 3 times. So you have to play 2 if you get cut off from this card. That's basically your win condition. So Unicorn establishes your control turn 1, and then you need to keep trishing 2nd turn, 3rd turn, and by then the card advantage and the tempo should be in your favor. So hopefully Unicorn comes back to 1, so maybe we can mess around with cutting this card to 1, but as of right now we can't do that. So that is it for the Necros monsters themselves. Now going on to the other cards. Play 3 Manju of the 10,000 hands. I don't remember the name, it's in German. This card's the best normal summon that I can think of as far as doing the same thing every time. Now, I've thought about a lot of versions of this deck, but for the most part, they just don't stack up because this card is just, it's like I said, the only inherent +1 in the deck, and it just helps you do what your deck wants to do. I've thought about Jalgan the Spiritualist because it'll force a negate, it'll restrict your opponent from normal summoning. It essentially does the same thing as Vanity's Fiend and Christia, except it's 200 attack, but you have Valcke to protect it, unlike other decks that think about playing that card. So there's a few options. Unfortunately, going second isn't really an option for this deck, this format, because of the inherent matchups that we have to face. But if it was an option, you know, Danko Seka, even something like Side Blocker would be fantastic. Normal summons in the deck, but we don't have the option right now. So maybe the ban list will change something, but for the time being, 3 Manju. You can even mess around with Senju. Next up is the Incantation Lineup. We play 2 Pencil Plume. It's a pretty standard lineup. 2 Candle, 2 Bookstone, and 2 Talismandra. These cards, if you're watching this profile, you probably know what they do. They're very important to the strategy for generating the card advantage that you need to ritual summon, because the mechanic is so inherently neggy. Like, I don't know another word for it. The ritual summoning mechanic just makes you lose so much card advantage that they're insane, because you think about it, every single time you resolve one is a +2, but it doesn't matter because you have to get rid of 3 cards to summon 1, and they help in that aspect. And then we have the 1 of Talismandra. This card's great. If you have the room, I refuse to play more than 40 cards. If you have the room, this card's fine at 2, because even if you draw multiples, you can discard. But with this card, what I like to do is discard the incantations from my hand, because I really like drawing Talismandra for some reason, and I don't want to use its hand effect, because then I can't use its summon from the deck effect. So that's it for the Incantation lineup. And then we are still playing the Ben 10 Vanity's Ruler combo. This is a good combo going first or second against pretty much any deck of the format except like Guru Control. Even Altergeist, like, it can affect them, but what you want to do is, if you're going second, break the board with Brio, Kloss, Unicorn, Trish, whatever you have to do, and then most of the time you can do your searches to get Vanity's Ruler on the field by reviving back Brio, try to bounce 2 cards, forcing a gate, whatever you got to do, and then end your turn by normal summoning the Vanity's Ruler. It's still a win condition. If you break Salamangreat's board and you normal summon Vanity's Ruler, you're probably going to win that game. They just don't have an out to that card. Alright, so that's every monster in the main deck, and I don't know the count. I think it's like 28 or something. Onto the spells. We are playing 2 Necros, one Necros Kaleidoscope. This was very interesting, and it took me a while to settle on this, because you're going to resolve Kaleidoscope Unicorn turn 1, and then if you do need it back, you have Bookstone. I hate that excuse, but this is the worst ritual spell mid to late game, because you can't use, like, you don't have the constant influx of cards in your hand, so it's the hardest one to resolve. You know, your Brio and your Colossus are never going to be in your hand, because most of the time you're searching for them. But we do still play a few Kaleidoscope targets, because level 6, level 12, and level 4 are the most important. You want to be able to Kloss Trish if you have to, or Valcke, Unicorn, whatever you have to do. But this card was the least important, and I felt that in the really grindy games, this was just the worst one, because you never want to not send from the extra deck, and if you do, or if you are not sending from the extra deck, it's just a worse version of Necros Mirror. We are playing 2 Necros Mirror. This was at 1 in my last deck profile, and I definitely regretted it, because this card's very important to banish your Trish, banish your Shrit, banish your Brio and your Kloss for your Trish, whatever you have to do. This card's very important. I would like to play Great Sorcerer of all cards, so that you can get that Send to the Graveyard, or the extra Valcke search, but For the most part, this is the most generic and versatile, but it's also the worst in card economy for the ritual summonings. And we're playing 2 Necroz Cycle. Fantastic card. I've messed around with it at 3. It does brick a little bit, so 2 is the perfect number. If you really do need a third, you're probably in a losing position or the game is going on way too long. So something went wrong along the way. But for them, this is it for the Necroz ritual spells. And then onto the regular spell cards, we have 3 Preparation of Rites. You have to play 3, it's not once per turn. There's literally no reason not to play 3. You have 10 search targets in the deck, something like that. The card's broken, you need to see it. Then we have 3 Called by the Grave. Hand traps are absolutely everywhere. The counters for other decks counter you, and that's the biggest problem. Lancia is a staple side deck card. Lancia destroys this deck. Valor stops your Trish regardless of anything unless you have Dance Princess, which I actually cut from the deck because if you're going against Sky Striker and you normal summon Dance Princess, yeah, they can't target your ritual monsters, but they can target your incantations, which is just as important because you're probably not going to get to where you need to be if they stop Talismandra or Candle Search, whatever. This card is very important. It's also a nice piece of disruption going first if you set it and they don't have a hand trap. So it kind of mitigates some of the hard counters to your deck. And then lastly, for the main deck, we have 3 Pot of Extravagance. This card's staple by now. Unfortunately, it's pretty expensive if you don't have it. There's not really a substitution. This deck needs the extra card, as well as this automatically, like, if you resolve this card, you know they don't have Ash, so you can safely resolve the rest of your plays. So if you don't have this card, I'm sorry, I don't really know what you can play in its place, but you need to play this card. And that's actually it for the main deck. Onto the extra deck. Extra deck has changed quite a bit because of the lack of Kaleidoscope as well as the lack of Super Poly in the side deck. I just don't think the cards are good enough, honestly. 3 Herald, I know we're only playing 1 Kaleidoscope target, but you have to be able to resolve Unicorn Kaleidoscope turn 1. So if you do Extravagance and you banish all, if you're playing less than 3 and you banish them, which banishing 2 happens a lot more than banishing 3, you're kind of in a really bad position because instead of going +0 to summon Unicorn, you went -1 because you had to send like Inst or something. So that is Herald, and we're playing 1 Elder Entity. It's just good utility. If you're going second, pop a problem card, force a negate, whatever you have to do. And then another Kaleidoscope target is the level 6 and the level 12. I really wanted to play 2 level 6s because Brio is that important going second, but I felt like there were better options, and I'll just take my chances with Extravagance because if I'm resolving Extravagance or it's getting stopped, then I could probably play through everything else they have with the remaining 5 cards I have. And then the rest is just utility rank 4s. So Karen Gorgon is phenomenal in your Sky Striker matchup. It really does help with just about everything. Helps with Rogue a little bit, but this just really mitigates the Sky Striker matchup. Evil Swarm Exciton Knight punishes people who don't know how to play around it. This card is great if you can resolve it, but that's the thing, you have to be able to read your opponent and understand the game state for this card to be relevant. Gaga Cowboy, this card is great. You got the space, you might as well play it. The games are going to be grindy with this deck. Given the format and the playstyle of this deck, the games are going to go on really long, so if you have that opportunity to just abuse the time rules, unfortunately that's how they work and we just have to accept it. But if you're put in a position where you need to get damage in the main phase, bam, Cowboy's the way to go. And then Abyss Dweller, just an all-around good card. What's kind of neat, I guess, is you actually get the attack boost for Abyss Dweller, so it's at 2200. But it just shuts off Salamangreat, shuts off Ray, whatever you need to summon Abyss Dweller for, you got it. Tornado Dragon, just kind of sort of helps with your bad matchups with the back row and being able to pop one card on your turn and one on their turn. It's not none of these cards are phenomenal. They all have their niche uses, and that's why they're all here. Like, none of these rank 4s are blowouts. None of them are gonna win you the match by themselves, but they will be the linchpin that, you know, kind of gets you across the line. And then we actually have the Utopia the Lightning package. This just outs big monsters. This deck has a very hard time, especially since I'm not playing Decisive Armor. If Trish can't deal with it and the monster's bigger than 2900, you lose. Like, there's no way around it. So this does help relieve that. I was thinking of playing Diamond Direwolf, but then, you know, that can be, if a monster can't be destroyed by battle like Colossus, or destroyed by card effect like Colossus. I know this doesn't out Colossus, but this has more utility than Diamond Dire. The last two cards are Outer Entity Azathoth and Outer Entity Gnarla. So this was something that I had to get convinced to try it out because it just didn't seem that good. But if you can resolve this effect, you actually are in a very good position to either push for an OTK or push for just swinging the game into your favor. Something that's pretty neat is you can actually use Gnarla's effect to discard a card and attach Herald from the grave, summon Azathoth, do whatever you have to do, and then either Valcke it away, or once it dies you get that +1. So it's not a +1 because you had to discard, but you get that search. So it's just another utility that your deck has that a lot of decks, you know, they can't use that effect in Gnarla. So it's just something neat to note. That's it for the extra deck. The side deck, I don't think it has changed because, like I said, the format hasn't really changed at all. But we have 3 Danko Sekka. It's great for your Sky Striker matchup. It's great for your Rogue matchup, your Altergeist, your Subterror. True Draco, to an extent, it stops the rank up magic Azathoth combo. It's just a good card to have. 3 Sphere mode for the impossible matchup, Danger Thunder Dragon. This card's your only hope to winning that matchup if they go first, so you kind of have to play it. 3 Twin Twisters, Sky Striker, back row, even Salamangreat, because when you're going to game 2 and 3, they'll probably side some sort of trap card that affects you, but it's just a good all-around versatile card. For when you're going first, there can only be 1. These can be summon limit, but I don't know, it's a toss-up. Whatever you think is more impactful, whatever you think is going to better fit the matchups that you're going to be playing against. This for Danger Thunder is why I play it, because against most other decks, I feel very confident that I can win the matchup. It's just that one is so difficult that you need everything at your disposal to be able to do so. And then another expensive card is Fantastical Dragon Phantasme. This really does help your Sky Striker matchup. It just helps you see your side deck cards. So if you're going against Danger Thunder and you can resolve this effect for, say, 4 draws, that's you're seeing, what is it, 10 cards versus 6 in your opening hand. So you're probably drawn to that Sphere mode or whatever, drawn to Extravagance to draw 2 more cards to see even more of your side deck cards. So unfortunately, I feel like you have to play this card in your deck because Trish gets outed by Valor, it gets outed by Impermanence, it gets outed by Widow Anchor, and this can stop that targeting. So this is a very important card, and unfortunately, again, there's no great option to stick in here to replace it. But guys, that is my pre-April banlist Necros deck profile. I'm definitely going to upload another one as soon as the Forbidden Unlimited list comes out, because that is all I'm waiting on. But guys, if you enjoyed the video, remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and check out other videos. We do a weekly podcast every Monday where we talk about Yu-Gi-Oh content, and as well as I try to upload as much as I can, but you gotta remember I work 40 to 60 hours a week, so this is kind of a hobby for me. All right, peace out.